Yo, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be taking a look at the Thursday Night Football Showdown slate on Draftkings for Week 9. For this Week 9 Thursday night game, we got a game between the 49ers and the Cardinals. We're going to talk through some of my favorite plays for this Showdown slate, talk about who I like to spend up for at the top. We'll go through and talk about some of my favorite captain plays as well. Just before we do get started, I would appreciate it if you would drop a like on this video. And as always, feel free to leave any comments down below regarding this slate, or if you just have questions in general, you can comment that down below as well. If you also want to leave any feedback, I do always appreciate your guys' feedback. That really does mean a lot. And if you are new to the channel, make sure you click that subscribe button down below so that way you'll never miss out on any of my new videos. You can click the notification bell so that way you get notified every time I upload. But let's go ahead and take a look at this Showdown slate for Thursday night. Talk about the guys at the top that I like, that I want to spend up for. First off, really like Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray at quarterback for $14,700 as a captain play, $9,800 as a flex play. So without a doubt, it is a tough matchup for Kyler Murray. But between the two quarterbacks in this game, between Murray and Garoppolo, I think Kyler Murray just gives you much more upside, even though he's in a tougher matchup. His rushing upside is what puts him over the top most quarterbacks for fantasy. Getting quarterbacks that have a legit shot at rushing for 50-plus yards in pretty much any game is always key. Gives you a solid floor, gives you a good ceiling as well, adds to your ceiling when you have rushing upside. And Kyler Murray for sure has that. He can scramble, he can move out the pocket, just gives you so much upside on the ground with his legs, obviously, and then he gives you the upside throwing touchdowns as well. Murray should probably be throwing a lot in this game, I would imagine. Right now the 49ers are 10-point favorites, so the Cardinals are underdogs in this game. They're big underdogs. They're probably going to have to throw a lot. I don't see them running the ball or having a ton of success in the running game. I do like Kenyon Drake on this slate because Kenyon Drake is so cheap. But I don't see Drake having like a monster game going for like 100 rushing yards or 150 rushing yards. I think a lot of the damage that the Cardinals are going to have to do offensively is going to come through the air just because they're going to have to pass. So I do prefer to go to Kyler Murray. Even though he's in a tougher matchup, I think he gives you more upside than Garoppolo. Garoppolo just hasn't shown a lot of upside this season for fantasy. I'd much rather target some of the running backs from the 49ers, who we'll talk about later in the video. But I do really like Kyler Murray here. If you want to pay for him at captain, you could definitely do so, but I prefer to play running backs and receivers at captain. A guy I would look to pay at captain would definitely be George Kittle. George Kittle at tight end, $13,800 in the captain, $9,200 in the flex. I definitely would play him over someone like Kyler Murray just because I think Kittle is someone that gives you a lot of upside at the captain position. This is probably the best possible matchup that George Kittle is going to get all season. Tight ends against the Cardinals have been a target all season, especially tight ends that are used in the passing game. We've seen some tight ends not do well against the Cardinals, but a lot of times that's because they're just not used in the offense like we would want them to be. For instance, like Tyler Eifert didn't really have a good game against the Cardinals, but that's just because he's not really targeted in that offense. We've seen a lot of tight ends, though, throughout the season that are heavily targeted, have really big games, and obviously George Kittle is heavily targeted in this 49ers offense. Even though he is a tight end, he's been probably their best target all season. Garoppolo targets him every week. He's got consistent volume, sees consistent volume every week, pretty much can pencil him in for 6 to 8 targets. If there was ever a spot for George Kittle to go for 100 yards and multiple touchdowns, if there was ever a spot for him to blow up, I think this is it against this really bad Cardinals defense. Not only have they struggled against tight ends, but they've just been really bad defensively this year, allowing a ton of points. I mean, they've struggled in the running department. We saw what Latavius Murray did to them last week. They've struggled just their pass defense as well. Murray was able to get to them through the air as well. Had a couple, I think he had at least 1 or maybe 2 receiving touchdowns. So it's a really good spot for the 49ers offense. Really like George Kittle. I think he is one of the top captain plays if you can pay up for him at captain at $13,800. But probably my favorite captain play is going to be the next guy, Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman, $13,000 at captain on DraftKings, $9,500 in the flex. So as I'm recording this on late Tuesday night, Matt Breida is currently questionable for this game. He did not practice on Tuesday, so there is a very good chance that Matt Breida does not play in this game. Coleman has been the most used running back so far for the 49ers, at least in the last few weeks he has. He had a monster game last week against the Panthers, going for 100 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. Crazy good game from Tevin Coleman. I think he had 40 DraftKings points. There was a point where the 49ers were using like 4 different guys at running back. They were giving Tevin Coleman touches. They were giving Matt Breida touches. They were giving Mostert touches. They were giving Jeff Wilson the ball some as well. It seems pretty clear that Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida are like the two guys they're going to be using the most at running back. And if Matt Breida misses this game, I expect Tevin Coleman to be in line for a heavy workload. It's a really good matchup. I mean, Cardinals have just been really bad defensively. They've really struggled against running backs. Coleman is a good pass-catching running back as well. They can use him in the passing game. Just gives you so much upside. So really like Tevin Coleman on the slate. If Matt Breida's out, I think he's one of the strongest options available. Definitely going to be a guy that I have in a lot of my lineups on this Showdown slate. But now we're going to take a look at Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk at wide receiver, 10,800 as a captain play, 7,200 as a flex play. So when Christian Kirk has been healthy this season, he has been a target monster. See an incredible volume just in the 4 or 5 games that he's been healthy. His first game back from injury last week against the Saints, he got 11 targets. I think he had 8 catches for like 80 yards and a touchdown. Or maybe it was maybe not that big, but it was a pretty big game for Christian Kirk. I know he had like 18 Draftkings points, something like that. This is without a doubt a really tough matchup. I mean, the 49ers defense is towards the top of the league. They've been shut down defensively. We saw them shut down the Panthers offense last week. I mean, Christian McCaffrey still had a decent game, but Kyle Allen wasn't really doing much. The Panthers receivers didn't really have much production, or didn't really produce either. So this 49ers defense is really good, but I just expect the Cardinals to be throwing so much in this game. It's a one-game showdown slate, so we really are limited with our options anyways. And a guy like Christian Kirk, who just continues to see massive volume every week, I think is a really good play. He can move around. He can play on the outside. He can play in the slot, so he should be able to avoid Richard Sherman. I'm not sure who Sherman's going to guard in this game, whether he just stays on one side of the field or whether he shadows somebody. I'd imagine he'll probably just stay on one side of the field, so Kirk should be able to avoid Sherman for most of this game, especially if he does line up in the slot some. So really like Christian Kirk. I think he's my favorite Cardinals receiver to go to. I do prefer him over Larry Fitzgerald. I think he just gives you more upside than Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald just hasn't shown a lot of upside this season. We haven't gotten any big games from him, whereas Christian Kirk actually has the upside to go for 20-plus Draftkings points. So I really like him from the Cardinals side. But now we're going to take a look at Kenyon Drake. So Kenyon Drake, 10,200 as a captain play, 6,800 as a flex play. So as of Tuesday night, David Johnson is questionable for this game and Chase Edmonds is doubtful. That leaves the newly acquired Kenyon Drake as the next available healthy running back for the Cardinals. They did pick him up from a trade. I would imagine that if David Johnson is out, Drake should get all the work he can handle, should touch the ball as much as he can. I know even the third string running backs for the Cardinals are banged up. I can't remember what his name is, but he's pretty banged up. They did pick up Zach Zenner. I imagine Zach Zenner will be the backup if David Johnson is ultimately ruled out. If David Johnson plays, we saw the last time David Johnson was quote unquote healthy, he only played 1 snap. So even if they say David Johnson's going to play, I don't know how much I would take that into account because, I mean, he was supposedly healthy against the Giants and only played 1 snap. So I really like Kenyon Drake. Obviously, he's going to be a great play if DJ and Edmonds are both out just because he's going to get all the work he can handle. And Drake has always been a pretty talented running back, in my opinion. Does have quick speed. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, which I think is very important in this game where the Cardinals are big underdogs where they're going to have to throw a lot. I could see Murray dropping a lot of screen passes to Kenyon Drake, so he gives you a lot of upside. He's really cheap, only 6,800 in the flex, 10-2 in the captain. Definitely makes sense as a cheap captain play if you want to go to him, especially if DJ is out. It looks like Edmonds is for sure going to be out, but if DJ's out, I mean, Drake's probably one of the best plays on this slate, in my opinion. But the last guy we're going to talk about is a really cheap value receiver. I usually always try and give you guys at least one cheap value receiver that I think at least has a shot for a decent game. And that's going to be Damiere Byrd. Damiere Byrd, only 1,600 as a flex play. Really, really cheap. So Bird's firmly in play as a cheap value, in my opinion. Last week versus the Saints, he played 43 out of 49 snaps, so he was on the field a ton. I believe that's like close to 90%. He also did get 5 targets, so it's not like he was just out there just blocking or not even getting targeted. He got 5 targets last week. We've seen games earlier this season where Damiere Byrd's gotten like 6, 7 targets, so I think we can reasonably project him from anywhere from 5 to 7 targets here. Maybe even more with how much the Cardinals should have to throw in this game. We might see Byrd get close to 8 targets. I know it didn't work out last game with, or the last showdown slate with James Washington. I liked Washington a lot as a cheap value receiver. He was targeted 6 times, so I think the process was good. It just didn't work out. He only got like 1 catch for 20 yards, but he still saw the volume. He got 6 targets, we could see Bird get like 6-7 targets in this game as well. It is a tough matchup, without a doubt. It's going to be a tough matchup for all these Cardinals receivers. There's a chance that Bird will probably line up against Richard Sherman a lot, especially if Sherman just stays on one side of the field and that's the side that Bird's on. Then obviously that's going to be a tough matchup for him, but this price tag just makes him so appealing. Even if he only gets like 6 or 7 DraftKings points, that might be good enough, especially if none of the cheap value plays really go off like below 4K. You've got like the kickers and defenses who are down there, but rarely do I play kickers and defenses, and I don't think I'm going to be really going to them on this slate. So as a cheap value play, I'll for sure be looking to Damiere Byrd to fill out my lineups. But that's it for this Showdown slate, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I do really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you check out one of my more recent videos that is popping up on the screen right now. You can also hover over my YouTube logo to subscribe to the channel. Feel free to do that if you haven't already. And as always, you can leave any comments, any questions, any feedback down below in the comment section. I do always appreciate that. But good luck on this Showdown slate, guys. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Peace.